All right. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. How are you?
Hey, doing good. And good evening to the people who are listening us in India and neighboring. However, good morning to the US folks out there and the rest part of the world. My name is Kumar Pushpak, and I head the team here at Ijona Services. And along with me, I have Tim Jerome from Albuquerque,
Yes,
West.
indeed. Yeah, I'm down in the southwest part of the United States. We're small, we're isolated, we're back in the back, and things are pretty quiet usually. How are you doing, Kumar? Are things exciting in your part of the world?
Exciting. Power cuts most of the places. I mean, the big cities, especially Mumbai, has seen the worst power cuts in a decades, I believe. And this has
Wow.
actually disrupted a lot of businesses and the personal life all put together. And that's what I thought of talking to you, checking in perspectives, how the other part of the world is behaving or responding when this huge power cuts happen. Yes, so that's what going to be the topic for today's talk, and I am sure you will put some lights and some your thoughts in. So
So,
how is it in the U.S.? How
well,
things happen in the U.S. out there?
okay, you have to realize. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background in my history. Um, First of all, our power infrastructure comes from the 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s. So the technology is like people are driving Model A and Model T Fords around. Okay. That's technology that we have running power in the United States. And we're always concerned about this. Um, on behalf of major corporations in early 2010 through 2011 and 2008, I was touring the world and I was talking about data security. And I was talking to major decision makers and visionaries in the United States. And one of the guys who was in charge of the security of the power grid on the East Coast said, guys, we're nowhere near where we can be secure, much less stable. We can't do this. We're running on copper wire, and it's so easy just to have a wire stepped on, and the whole infrastructure, East Grid, is out. And so we've lived with this. It's something in the back of our mind. It's like you go home every day and you realize there's a chore that nobody's done for 20 years and still needs to be done, and we're living with the fact and it's just like COVID was before
Mhm.
January. This is real, but the problem is it's not affecting me now, and there are other things that are emergencies. So when we have major outage, and we will, just like you guys, we're going to have to address it, and we're going to have to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to fix this. And it's scary. It's not just frightening, it's scary. And it's, it just adds to the whole burden that we're carrying. What's happening in your cities? How do you deal with power outage? Because it's in my city, in my location, right? We don't have public transportation. We don't have tunnels. We don't have major movement of people. Um, what happens when a major city faces a power outage?
Mhm. So generally, what we do, I mean, the big cities, if I have to talk, like Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai. I mean, these are the metro cities in India. Uh, I mean, especially if I talk with respect to Bangalore, where I'm living. for past 15, 17 years. So I haven't seen such issues coming up. Yeah, we do come across when there are line cuts, when there is a problem with the grid. Uh, yeah, we have seen that, but in a couple of hours, it's back and up and running. What we have done, especially in my office, I have an office in Bangalore, though. So what we have done, we have kept a generator, a genset, which instantly kicks off once the power outage is there. But then it can only help you sustain for say 4 to 6 hours. Beyond that, it's really a mess if it comes in the way. But if I talk with respect to the Mumbai situation, it is bad. The entire power grid has got failed, and the entire metro, your trains, all the public transports has been affected, along with the personal life. Offices definitely has been affected. So for a smaller section or the small portion of it, we do have gensets, we have UPS in place, which kind of take care once the sudden outage happens. But this is something not normal when you have an outage for entire day. You see,
Yeah.
that's where the problem comes.
Yeah, and one of the things that threatens our communities. I'm not talking about, the food spoiling in the refrigerators. I'm talking about threatening communities is lack of communications.
Hmm.
And this is the problem because with cell towers, you think your phone is all right, but cell towers have maybe 8 to 10 hours of backup capability before they go down. And there's two things that we have thrived on in our societies. Number one, communications, and number two, business. And you start playing with those things, and it really doesn't get just, you know, we have something to deal with here. It gets worrisome because this is the bread and butter. This is how society sustains itself. And I can assume that everybody is carrying this on their shoulders. And this is where it gets really scary, because as a society we know we're going to deal with this, right? The government has things in place. They say they're talking to us. But at the same time, there are three things that every human being in their roots knows. I have three things I gotta have in place. I need to feel safe. I need to be stable, right? I need to predict that I'm going to be able to get up tomorrow, have my coffee and tea, go into work, and have the same routine. I can't be in an emergency situation constantly. I need to have a little bit of control. Even if the control means I choose between chocolate ice cream and vanilla ice cream, I need some sense of control in my life. And number three, I need to have fulfillment. I need to achieve something I want. And we start messing with those with individuals, and all of a sudden individuals start really having troubles. And that's where we've been here in the last 6 to 8 months. We've been actually dancing on the edge of these three things. We don't feel safe because every day it's either going to be open or not. We don't have a sense of control. Government tells us you're not going to go out or you're going to go out. We can't decide those. And we can't fulfill ourselves without jobs, without interaction with other people. How do we feel achievement? And so this is really not just challenging us. This is rocking us down to our fundamentals. And this is where we get really scary. And the problem is, if you stay in this state long enough, you do something called rumination. Rumination is thinking about something over and over and over and over and over again without resolving it.
Right.
And our brain is really good at this because it helps us solve problems. But the thing is, our brain, the way it's made, allows us to stay on these things that create these heavy weights on our shoulder, and we cannot get out of them. And this is where we get into trouble. And we need some type of motivation, or some type of what you were calling last week willpower.
Right.
And if we don't have a source of that, when we get into this rumination state, it's like I don't know what to do and I can't get out. I'm stuck. The
Yeah.
stuckness that we talk about.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it becomes more vital, Tim. I believe, especially these days when everybody is working from home. I mean, most of us is working from home. I believe the IT community is entirely working from home. It's just the other businesses which requires the human to human interactions. Those are back on the ground, but rest all are working from home. Now, if this situation comes in, and people are sitting idle at home for long, the business also gets disrupted, isn't it?
And that's the problem. And not only from the functionality, business can't do what business has to do, but business relies on people, and it relies on people being motivated and people being unstuck. And how can we, number one, as people, stay unstuck and stay motivated and moving forward? And second of all, how can we actually, as business owners and leaders, how can we actually create an environment such that people can feel a little bit of safe, they have a little bit of decision making, a little bit of authority, and they can feel sort of fulfilled? How do we create these little pockets of sanity, even if it's just within our companies or within our organizations?
Hmm. But tell me, in this situation, Tim, if, say, for example, if you are an owner of company, how do you like to react? What are you going to tell out to your clients out there who has been waiting for something important to be delivered?
Real quickly, I am a partner with them. I'm a fellow traveler. So it's that communication aspect. Okay. That's the big thing. We're in this together. This is something that you and I have no control over. It's, again, we call this force majeure, right? Basically, acts of nature. And we'll get through this. We'll get through this. And it's great to actually tell each other stories and remind each other that we've done this before and we've had crazy times. And creating a sense of cohesion out of the craziness. It's like, the lights are out, and what do you do with the kids, with the family? You put some candles on the floor and you sit down and tell stories. And these stories create the community and the nature, where we're not isolated little groups of individuals. We're a community, and we'll get through this. It starts with one or two groups, and then it builds from that. You do this. And again, you can think about a family just like as a community of businesses, right? What do you do first? You make sure the kids are all right. You make sure you're telling stories and you're eating fun food over candlelight instead of the light, and everything is more of a celebration instead of a struggle. And then you go outside and you see the other families talking, and you talk to each other, and you say, okay, things are normal. We'll be all right. We'll be all right. We'll be all right. And it's creating one foothold, and then building that. And you start off from what's inside my business, what's inside my organization, what's inside my project. And then you create that influence and stability. You build out from there. In the end, we're all just families.
Anything that in US, I mean, In India, there is no as such law which can protect these kind of situations. In US, how things are? I mean, do you have any law which protects as a consumer? Uh, that protects you.
No. Well, first of all, there are protections that the government has in place, and they have to do with the safety and the continuity. Um, Beyond that, it's the contracts.
Mhm.
It's the contracts between the utility providers and the utility users. For instance, telecommunications, internet, right? Um, I have I have a huge reliance on internet. I have a backup network as well as a primary network, and my contracts say that we will allow this amount of disruption to your network for upgrades across a year. And then it says we will allow for things that nature does to us. And you and I will have a conversation and we'll work out, what's a good exchange if the network goes out beyond what you and I expect. And it opens up the conversation so that we can negotiate without getting into big fights. And that's the intent of networks and telecommunications and the internet. But it has been crazy this year. I used to be the only person who worked from home in my neighborhood. I would be the guy who was working out his yard at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning between classes, where all the other men were going into the office. And now, 70 to 80% of entire families are working from home and going to school. And so it was a huge burden on internet providers and telecom providers and power providers. And they've been doing a lot of upgrades to stabilize and to grow the capacity here. And we've had a lot of disruptions, more disruptions than I've seen in many years. And it's been frustrating because all of a sudden I cut out in the middle of one of the classes I'm teaching, and what are you going to do? You just say, okay, it's just the nature of the world. It's crazy weather year, and we're just going to go through with it. And you try to be as stable as you can. But honestly, from a law, it's it's tricky. Okay, it's tricky because we have a democracy where it's the responsibility of the people as much as the responsibility of the leaders to make sure that what is shared stays shared and is fairly shared. Both the burdens as well as the benefits. And so we're always working on that happy dance. We don't want to actually enforce rules, because that comes and bites people all the time, because the rules, whether in place, once they're there, they have a way of working for bad as well as good. Um, Again, we
Yeah.
rely
I
more
mean,
on
I
the
just hope.
contracting relationships.
Mhm. I mean, I feel there has to be some sort of responsibilities owned by the government if they fail. Like I have, when I sign a contract with a client, I have my pros and cons, and I'm actually have a separate column which says penalties. You see what I'm saying? So if I fail in the normal delivery, which it's okay, everybody fails, that's not a problem. But it's the point, if you fail, there has to be some penalties, there should be some uh, sort of recovery from the government side as well. I think, I don't know, but some government should take a step towards it.
Yes, and here's the problem. We do. We actually do. Actually, government, like a corporation, is seen as an individual in court, right? Under
Mm-hmm.
court, we have that, and we have agents of the government, just like we have agents of corporations. So you can sue the government as well as it, and any individual within a democracy can do that if it's seen that the rights of the individual have been impinged upon by the government, and this makes sense. And we exercise this regularly in the United States. But the problem is, number one, you know, we're not educated. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to do this, and we don't know what our rights are. And number two, the ability to do this at the individual level takes such an amount of effort and time that we get worn down, and only the biggest and most important issues go to the highest courts in the country. But again, that's as it should be. It is frustrating, though. The government does have responsibilities as well as rights. We're going to see that push and pull more and more here. And it's frightening because both Buckminster Fuller and Peter Drucker, as well as Deming, said in the 1950s and 1960s, boundaries between nations are going to become real blurry. Boundaries between corporations are going to get real blurry too. And when they get blurry like that, um, who do you go to say you're not doing your job? And that's the problem. I'm a worker, but I work in India. I work in the United States. I work in Canada. I work in South America. I work all over the place. And when my rights are impinged, who do I go to and where? And we haven't even started opening up that can of worms. It's frustrating. It really is. Um, More and more people right now are talking about that. That's the frustration we're feeling in the United States by pulling down all our statues. Government is not moving fast enough. The movement of small groups with their need to be heard and to take action is important, and we protected that religiously in the United States, but we're balancing on the edge of a blade right now, with the government saying, yeah, you have rights to do this, but if you do it in certain manner, the national government's going to come in and step all over you. We're not going to let you do anything. And then
Mm-hmm.
the local government here is saying, stay out of this national government. So the national and local governments are having fights. And it's like the common person like me, it's like we're kids watching mom and dad fight in the living room. And we're not frustrated. We're scared. It's taking its toll on us as individuals. It's wearing down our nerves, which further pushes us to that, emotional outburst and that need to speak out and be heard. We're nowhere near having riots. We have some, but we've always had a few of these riots going on every summer, through late summer into early fall in all the cities. It's just the nature of human beings. You're going to have bad leaders. You're going to have good leaders. It's the nature of society. You're going to have groups who
Mm-hmm.
toe stepped on, and they're going to speak out, and they're going to speak out in ways that society doesn't approve. And we're so big and we're so spread out, we just see it and it's natural. But when it's at this level, and when it starts seeing patterns across the United States, this is where we get a little concerned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I and this is just, again, it's just the nature of humans.
Right. Nature of humans. We had been talking about talking a lot on the willpower, Tim. Uh, Tell me how this willpower uh, can be boosted up in these kind of situation, when especially when things are out of your control, when you cannot do anything as a human, you are helpless. How this willpower can actually play a role?
So, willpower means that I have a choice. I can eat a handful of chocolate or I can eat a bowl of salad. And willpower says this is good for me and this is not good for me. And I choose what's good for me. And
Hmm.
we feel better when we choose what's good, what's the better path, even if it's harder. Willpower is the ability to go beyond just our basic instincts and do what's harder. And it's hard to create that willpower. There are things we can do. One of them is finding a sense of purpose. If you have a reason why, for instance, if you have a health issue, it's much easier to pick up the salad instead of chocolate. It's much easier to eat what's good for you than eat what's not good for you. It's the same thing with every decision. If you have a reason why, but that reason why has to resonate really deep. I teach in some of my motivational classes methods to find your why. The You notice great leaders, right? Um,
Hmm.
we talk about them all the time. The big three in our lifetimes, right? JFK, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. Right? Those are the three that we see who are great leaders.
Hmm.
They're good and great not because of how and what they did, but why they did it. And it's their why that people followed them. But how do I find my why? How do I find my purpose? And see, this is what we're working with right now in our society. We have something called an existential crisis. Um, it's not a society thing. It's a very very personal thing that says, I don't even know why I exist. I don't know why I'm here. Um, we've been doing this for 7 months. I don't go into work. Why did I ever go into work in the first place? It didn't do me any good. Um, I'm My job is inconsequential, and it's like I don't even have any relevance. And to think about that is scary. And to wake up and go to sleep with that for 7 months is not just is not just a concern, it's a monster. And so we have to actually say, you know, maybe my job isn't my purpose. Maybe
Hmm.
my job is to sustain me so I can fulfill my purpose. And so people like Simon Singh and other motivational people who have actually found this driver of purpose have actually been really good, positive contributors to change. To say, your job is one thing, but your job just puts gas in the car. The reason why you drive the car is what you really need to think about. Why do
Right.
I need to go to work? Why do I need that money? And there are things you can do. You have to set aside time, and you have to do it. And sometimes we have to go out in the forest and live in a hut, just like spiritual people did a long time ago. The What Simon says to find your real purpose is to go back and tell yourself stories about your life and find little things. Gather your history and find the things that have real emotional impact to you and write them down. And just like I said earlier, when the power outages go, tell stories. Tell them to your kids, tell them to your spouse and your partners, and talking about these things in stories and things seems to actually create these threads and themes. And all of a sudden, you see not just what and how you did things throughout your life, but why they were meaningful. Why do you come back and remember these events in your lives? Because they were pivot points when you made major decisions. I chose at a certain point in my life to focus on music, and I was going to be a great professional singer. I was really good. But then all of a sudden, I chose to actually study math and study business because it had even more meaning for me. I had a purpose. It was going to allow me to have more impact for my family and on society itself if I did that. And these are the things that actually define who you are, but more important, why you take action. And that's where willpower comes in. If you have a sense of purpose, you'll push through. And this is where things get really interesting, Kumar. We're actually hardwired for purpose. The We have something called, let me get my notes out here. Um, Inside of us, we have something called, they're a neurotransmitter, and let me get the name of them. Endorphins. And
Huh?
it's weird. What happens is if you run 5 miles and you say, I'm going to run 5 miles, and you make it, you reward yourself, right? Your body rewards yourself. It gives you a little shot of happy juice. Okay. Now,
Right.
it's the same happy juice that happens when your phone buzzes or beeps or bongs. And this is why people love video games so much, because it gives you these little neurotransmitter hits. Now, endorphins work a little bit differently. Endorphins say, I can only run 5 miles. Now, if you run 6 miles, endorphins say, wow, you did something special, and they kick in. And so your body actually rewards you for going a little bit beyond where you're going. So you have neurotransmitters that reward you for an achievement and going a little bit beyond your achievement. And so you can actually use this and say, I know it's hard today, but if I can only make it one more day, my body will reward me. And I may learn something more today that I knew yesterday. And so we can actually build this. Now, remember when I was talking about that rumination and that
Hmm.
whole thing in the back of your mind? The human mind is really bizarre. And I talk about this a lot. You can think about the human mind as the robot, and that's the most recent part of our brain, and it has no emotion. It just has reasoning. That's all. But the problem is, it's always reasoning, and it's really weird. Um, if it sticks on something, it'll ruminate. You're going to fail. 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 It picked up on that. You're somewhere in your subconscious. There was a string of thought that said failure, and it picked up on that, and it just says that over and over. Now you can fight this. You can't say no to the robot. So what you do is you give the robot something else to work on. You say,
Right.
you say, I have a problem here, robot. Can you help me? And it says, oh, sure. And all of a sudden, it no longer says, you're going to fail. You give it a task. Now, the place where we make decisions and the place where we have willpower is in our subconscious, and it's deeply connected to our emotions. It's the fight, flight, or freeze response, right? It's the animal. It's the older part of our brain. It's not the oldest, but it's older than a robot. And the problem is when we make decisions, the robot talks to the emotional part of the brain in the subconscious. And the subconscious says, this doesn't make sense. Can you help me make sense of this? And the robot says, sure. And it puts two and two together and makes five. It's really
Right.
good at doing this. And so we make up these things, and our brains are doing this all the time. Now, we can actually take action on this, and we can take conscious control of the robot, where we say, okay, let's step in the middle between the robot and the emotional part of the mind and make sure that this decision is all right. Is the world collapsing? Are we in the middle of a riot? And this is the beautiful thing. And we've been talking about this in Western civilization. How do I learn how to very effectively step in the middle and be the referee between the robot and the emotional part of my mind? We have to take action on this, but we take it, we do this, right? And again, this, we see this a lot in religious texts. We see this a lot in sociological textbooks, and we study this in our anthropology a lot. That you can actually use the rational mind to not only quell the fears, but course, basically plan your course through these very tricky times in society. We're always going to have doubt. Okay. There's always going to be there. The brain's always going to pick up on what if, and it's going to listen to the subconscious. But if we understand that this is the mechanism of the human brain, it's all right. Now, doubt is a survival mechanism. Okay. And this is the key. We have doubt for a really good reason. It's not that it's bad. It's like, did I really think this through carefully? But it's like having a wild animal for a pet. You don't keep your eye off of it. You keep control of it. Okay. It's
Right.
only when you don't have control. And that's the thing. But once you start taking active control of this wild animal that you have as a pet, it's powerful. It's not cynicism. It's critical thinking. It's the ability to step in and say, let's apply reason. Let's actually use what nature has given us. This is a gift, and let's actually use it, not just to do this. Ah, I just saw a question. I like that question. We'll talk about that one in a few, Kumar. That
Yeah.
actually has relevance to our conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
Rohit is asking, is failure is a sign of success? We'll take that question in a minute, Rohit. Once we finish this particular topic, we'll come back to your question. Yeah, Tim,
so
you can continue.
so yeah, and I'll wrap this up, and I do want to talk about failure because it's really quick. There was a scientist who became a very popular scientist in the United States in the 1960s called um, Carl Sagan. And he said that we all need, as individuals, to build something called a baloney meter. Now, a baloney is minced meat that you slice up and put in a sandwich. It's the cheapest type of meat you can get. And it's basically, if you can't afford anything else, you have a bologna sandwich, right? But the problem is bologna is bologna, and you'd rather eat something more nourishing. And so you need to actually stop before you eat and look and see. And the bologna meter says, is this real good food or is this not good food? And he said, there are some simple things that you can do. Number one, um, you need your facts from more than one position. It's like being in a mountain range and you actually stand on one mountaintop and look down and it looks like one thing, but you stand on another mountaintop and it looks different. If you have the two views, you have a more clear view. And it takes time to do this. How many sources of news do you look at in a day? Do you look at both sides of the argument? Are you afraid to look at both sides of the argument? Why? um, Debate. We don't debate, we argue.
We argue, yeah.
And debate says that I may not know all the answers. And by listening to you and by challenging my own thoughts, I'm going to get better. My value, in debate, my personal value is not in whether I'm right or wrong. My personal value is to be better and stronger and learn more. And so by participating in debate, we can release this, and our values are no longer outside of us. Our value is who we are and how we progress in life, our purpose. Um, Creating more than one hypothesis. What if I'm wrong? Do I have different worldviews? It's, are the politics of India better or worse than the United States? Who knows? Maybe in 1,000 years, somebody will really be able to talk about that. It doesn't matter. But you know what? I hate to say this, but it's a good mental exercise for us to say, if I can step outside of my opinions, even in these challenging areas, and we have a lot of challenging things that we're working on as a society. It's not that I believe one or the other, but what if I can actually step out and find the strengths from both sides? Number one, we're not two people. It's not like you believe that and I believe that. We're one people with two different views. And number two, maybe there's something that we can come up with that not only unites us, but makes us stronger as a whole. And that's
Right.
where creating more than one hypothesis, using debate, and independent confirmation of facts allows us to be stronger. And again, I'm going to come back to the fact that we're not relating our strength and our power and our identity to something outside of who we are, but inside of who we are. And ownership of knowledge is like ownership of air. I don't own the air I breathe. It's shared with all, and that's the way knowledge is too. And metrics and analysis, getting that data to your robot, validates. I stress this so much in my classes. The power of using things like statistics and math to validate things is incredibly powerful. A lot of these problems are complex too. They're not
Mhm.
simple problems that we work on, and we have to look at them as a chain of problems, and each chain has to be strong, and it takes time and it takes effort, and that's why a lot of us don't like to do this. But this is what it means to be human. If we want to solve these big things, we have to be patient with ourselves and with each other. But this is the path Carl was saying, is how we can actually take those little monsters that we think are huge and quantify them and actually show that they're not monsters. They're things of our imagination. And if we look with flashlights first and then bring them up into daylight, there's opportunity here. There's not just room for disaster.
Right, right. Would you like to take up that question now, Tim?
Oh yeah, failure. What is failure, by the way? Failure. Do you what would you describe as failure, Kumar? This is hard.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask me, failure is a sign of success. I would say, yeah. I mean, failure actually opens 10 new doors for you. You know, I mean, life can be actually monotonous if you keep on winning and always winning. I mean, then you won't have the excitement. To get
And
an excitement, you need to
and
fail.
this beautiful thing. This is the beautiful thing. This is the coin you and I talk about all the time. To every
Yeah.
dark side of the coin, there's a bright side of the coin. And we have an opportunity as humans, more than any other species on this planet, to flip that coin whenever we decide. We can do this. And a mistake can teach us as much as a success can. And in fact, mistakes and failures sometimes teach us even more. It's the fear that we cannot recover from our mistakes and our failures that we have problems with. But I've learned over my life, and I'm still learning, that failure, it's still another day. It doesn't mean I don't have a good cup of coffee in front of me. Failure does not mean I don't have my family anymore. Failure does not mean things are not going to run on time and things are not going to, be a mistake. It's failure is just that. Unexpected results without experience. Oh, that's a good definition. Unexpected results. We got what we didn't expect without experience is failure. So failure is not a negative in that definition, and that's what I really like. It's discovering something that's a surprise. That's good. That's really good.
I'll give you a counter on this, Tim. Many a times. I know. So, how do we calculate failure versus success? We calculate with the percentage, isn't it? Most, I mean, there is a 70% chance of me winning. There is a 30% chance of me losing. I mean, these kind of ratios we generally do. Rohit, if you're listening me, right? That's how we actually calculate any steps that we take. If have a back of my pocket thinking, what if I fail? What are my percentage that I'll fail? Right? Even then, we actually go ahead and appear in the exam, don't we? We do that, knowing that there is a chance of me failing in. But I'll tell you where the beauty lies in. The beauty lies in, even though you know that you have chances to fail, you still go ahead and perceive that. And I'll tell you where the satisfaction lies. And Tim, you can actually correct me. The satisfaction lies in when you actually go appear for an exam where you were thinking that you will fail and then you pass. That's saying
This
that, hey, you know what? I actually did it.
and that's a gateway. That's a gateway, and that's one part. Let me throw in another facet of this that actually is going to bring this all together. Peter Drucker said, executives have a dirty secret. A third of the decisions they make are going to be good. A third of the decisions that they're going to make are going to be bad decisions. And a third of the decisions are going to be inconsequential. It doesn't matter whether they made them or not. And this is Peter Drucker, one of the greatest business advisors and experts of the 20th century, period. And he said 30% of the time, your decisions are going to be inconsequential. It doesn't matter. So what he was saying is, it's not the goal that's important. He said it's the progress that's important. It's marching forward, because marching forward, you get to what Rohit was talking about with the failures, which tell you you can course correct. See, there's no pass or fail in business. There's, this worked out and this didn't work out. And so if you look at it from that perception, failure is not failure. It's not today, not under these scenarios, not with this. If you want it, you can do it, but you learn more as you progress and move forward. And this is why progress is so important. Moving forward gives you more information and more knowledge, and as Rohit says, more experience, and that gives you more confidence. And so failure is not a door closing. Failure is an offering of more information so I can make better decisions. And this is what executives and leaders know. There is no failure. There really is. Failure is a ghost and a monster we created, and it keeps us locked, and it keeps us stuck. But what we're talking about is opportunities to make better and better decisions as we move forward, because we have more and more information through taking action. Yeah, I love this topic, Rohit. It's a brilliant topic. And I wish more and more people were exposed to this line of thought. It's the journey, it's not the destination. We all hear that, and that's part of this. But it's progress. It's moving forward. I am better than I was yesterday. And as long as you can say that every day, there is no failure. The only failure is rumination and complacency. It's not playing the game. Play the game, guys. Join in, make mistakes, get dirty, get some scratches on your elbows.
That you're referring towards. It's more of the journey that you're referring towards, isn't it, Tim?
It is. It is. It's the participation. The scariest part of being a gladiator is when you walk into the arena because you don't know. It's like jumping into a pool and you don't know how cold it is. You jump into the pool and then you hit it and then you know exactly how cool it is. But then you realize it's cool. And I'm swimming and I'm enjoying myself. It's like any new knowledge. It's I don't know if I can learn this. Yeah. Everybody has learned this in one way or another. Everybody grows. And pretty soon you learn that progress itself looks like you're jumping off a cliff. But if you look backwards, it's stepping off the curb onto solid ground that everybody walks in every day. And this is actually what gets us off the couch and helps us participate. And again, this is where I say your purpose, your why is not to go in and make money and make corporations. Your purpose is something much greater, and you have an opportunity right now to explore that. The money you make and the life you live actually fuels your discovery of your purpose. It's not the purpose in itself. And we're facing that. We're going to have more and more open public conversations of this. Millennials know this. They don't trust government, they don't trust business, and they've had to figure this out at a very young age. They have a lot of doubt, but that has actually fueled very early discovery of this, where you and I, Kumar, didn't question these things when we were young. Yep.
Rohit has messaged.
Yep, exactly, Rohit. And that's the kick. And once you jump once, it's easier to jump the next time because you're more familiar with jumping. And making mistakes and picking yourself up is one experience that you learn and you grow with. It's beautiful. And guys, try it. And if you make mistakes, ask others. And this is where observing people and understanding people and reaching out and seeing people who've actually gone down the path you want to is important, because they'll validate that they made similar mistakes, if they're real true individuals, and they want to see you actually be successful. That's what we're all here for, is to actually make it easier, not just for ourselves, but for the community itself. The beehive. If you have a healthy beehive, you're going to have healthy bees. And I'm a bee who wants a healthy beehive. We all do.
True. All right, perfect. Do we have any questions here?
Any
Uh,
more questions?
all right. If you still have any questions, even when we log off, please feel free to drop in your questions uh, to our email ID. That's support@ionaacademy.com. And we should be able to take up those questions We will again come back next week, same time, with a new topic. If you want to suggest some topic that you want to hear uh, and participate in discussion, please let us know. Me and Tim would be glad to take up those and invite you. With this, Tim, you have any last minute word to conclude today's session?
No, actually, this has been brilliant conversation. This is basically fundamental. The gift that this year is giving all of us is the opportunity to actually find our personal purpose. And with that, willpower actually is very easy. This is where we tap into the emotional part of ourselves. If you can actually use this time to find out why you're here, and reach out. Don't be shy. Reach out. How do I find my purpose? Where do I find my purpose? And you'll find a lot of people, not just myself talking about it, but a lot of people find talking about how to find your purpose. It's just that I've been studying this very diligently for the last 3 or 4 years. And I've been working with thousands of students to help them not just learn stuff, but learn why they need to know this. So if you're curious about that, yeah, ask, and we can put on a few workshops and webinars, and we can actually have that conversation as well.
Right, right. No, wonderful. With this note, Rohit, global. Okay, Rohit has just pinged in somewhere. Let me. Global crises like ice melting and atmosphere change may discourage our youth generation.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. You know what? And I've been studying this, Rohit. Actually, we can talk about this in future ones. In 2200 BC, I can talk about two societies that responded differently, and one society succeeded and one didn't, and why. And in 1200 BC, same thing happened: global climate change, and what happened to 9 different civilizations around the Mediterranean, and why one civilization survived and the others didn't. If you want to talk about that, it's very interesting, and it's very relevant to what's happening today. It's not just climate change. It's not just instability of currency. It's not just commerce chains breaking down. We're talking about, why do societies fail? And there are a lot of people discussing this right now. And if you want to talk more about that, it has great relevance in our personal lives.
Sure. All right. So, time for today. We have crossed 60 minutes.
We always do. We always do, Kumar. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be interacting with you. And Rohit, thanks for speaking up. We're more than happy to have these conversations, and we'll continue our conversations.
Wonderful. With this, thank you, Tim. But people out there, please do take care of yourself. Yeah, I mean, power outage is a part of life. I mean, that's there. But then keep yourself. I'll tell you what I tell my employees out there. There are two things which happens very frequently, and I am sure you would agree with that. One is at our houses, the power our Wi-Fi or the modem, that goes for a toss. Even fraction of seconds it fluctuate, and then we are out of the network. There is a small device that comes in, and that takes complete power backup of your at least of your modem. So even if the light or the power goes off and it comes back within, like, 5 or 10 minutes, your modem will still survive. It will still sustain. It cost you approximately $2,000, I believe, into the market out there. You can easily buy it from Amazon or Flipkart or any other site out there. But this is very, very useful, especially for our colleagues who work constantly, and to be up and running with the network is very, very important. That really helps. $2,000 a device, a small device. It's a power bank which easily gets fit with your modem, and life can be easy. I mean, that's a small advice that I just got in. I thought of giving out to you. Anyway, with this, thank you so much for your time, and we will again come back next week, same time, Tim,
Very
with a
good.
new topic. We look forward to that, and have a great evening, and talk to you soon, guys. Thank you
Thanks
so
again.
much.
Thanks